Welcome beer tubers to another episode of San Diego Beer Vlog. Thanks for joining me once again. Today another collaboration beer from Stone. This is with the Bruery and Elysian, and this is their, and now I'm going to butcher this name, the Citrueille Celeste de Citracado, which I'm butchering because it's French and I always want to do like a Spanish take on that, but it means the heavenly pumpkin of Citracado. Stone is located on Citracado Avenue, so hence where that comes from. And this is a special beer because it's brewed with pumpkin, yams, toasted fenugreek, I'm probably butchering that name, lemon, verbena, and birch bark. And it's really low ABV. It's actually only 5%. So let's get this thing open. I did a little bit of research on some of these ingredients. The birch bark, you know, I'm thinking like root beer-ish kind of characteristic to it. The fenugreek, it says toasted, so I'm assuming they're using the seeds. So maybe instead of like a pumpkin seeds, toasted pumpkin seeds, they're using that as a replacement. And then the lemon and verbena, I think is like an herbal lemony kind of herb. So it sounds really interesting. I haven't really heard of a lot of these ingredients. Pumpkin and yams, because Elysian uses has a bunch of pumpkin beers up in Washington, and the Bruery up in Orange County, they do a yam beer out of maple. So I believe this is like a 5% English style brown ale base. Get some nice kind of ruby red tints. Kind of has a dark mahogany color. Got about a finger and a half of kind of like a darker off-white, almost bordering on light brown head. Not a decent carbonation. It's fairly transparent. I've had it sitting out of the fridge for about 20 minutes now. It says to, drink fresh. It's only 5% beer. It shouldn't last too long, so let's get the aroma. See, that's where the aroma, I mean, if you're expecting a typical pumpkin beer with cinnamon and nutmeg and clove and allspice and all of those spices, you're not getting it on this beer. I get some like sweetness, like sweet caramel notes, a hit of like roastiness that you get like on a brown ale. Underneath that you get some lemony notes. I do get a little of that birch bark. I do get a little bit like a root beer kind of aroma. And then underneath that you do get some of that gourd character from the yams and pumpkin. So really interesting smelling beer. Not what you expect in a typical pumpkin beer, which is kind of the point of why they wanted to brew this one. So head's fading down there. Let's give this thing a try. Cheers. That's just really different, really atypical. The brown ale base of the beer really comes through, and then a lot of those extra ingredients kind of work their way towards the back of the palate. Up front you get some sweetness, some caramel notes, slight roasted notes, and some like root beer character from that like birch bark. Kind of get some sweetness up front, and then it seems kind of like the rest of the ingredients kind of help balance out the back end, because it does kind of finish dry after that big sweetness up front. Midway through you start to get a little of a lemony character, and the back end definitely has some bitterness coming through. Maybe that's part of the lemon, verbena, and the fenugreek. I don't know. Maybe a slight bit of like a toastiness in there. I'm not too familiar with the ingredients, so it's kind of hard to say what is exactly doing what in the beer. But it's very interesting, the flavors you get off it. I'd say midway through you start to get some of that gourd character. It's not overbearing. It's not quite up to the level I kind of like. I think they use some toasted or roasted pumpkins from Stone Farms, which they started up pretty recently. So that was very cool. And then, yeah, the back end and maybe in the finish, you get some sort of lemony root beer, kind of pumpkin-y, yammy kind of notes, which is pretty interesting. I don't know, it's very untraditional, so it's kind of hard to gauge where this beer kind of ranks with other pumpkin beers, because they're not using those typical spices. But it's a really drinkable beer. It's not like wowing me like an A beer should. So I don't know. It's above average for me. It's not. It's just different. Is all. It's an outside the box type of pumpkin beer. So you got to give them credit for that. So it's kind of a tough one for me to grade. I think I'll go B- with it. It's just a bit above average. It's really drinkable though. I will say that. But I was kind of hoping that there'd be a little more going on with it. The base beer's, you know, it's fairly nice. It's fairly kind of mild on the palate. The extra ingredients are kind of a nice addition, but I don't know. I was hoping to have like bigger pumpkin flavor on it, and it's just not quite coming through. I think the taste, maybe some of the kind of more herbal, earthy notes kind of tend to dominate more so than I kind of wish the pumpkins and yams would come out. But anyway, that's my palate. It's kind of my take on this beer. So I do recommend going and buying a bottle. It just came out in October. Buy a bottle for sure. Try it. You might like it way more than I do. But you know, I think I do prefer sort of the more traditional spices in the pumpkin beer. But this is a really nice kind of, you know, different approach to it. So it's going to wrap it up. Until next time, please comment and subscribe. Cheers.